A family of 4 has tragically died in a house fire, but the details of this case are really strange. Around 4 a.m. yesterday morning, a neighbor of the Prusner family woke up to see a glow coming through his window. He said he grabbed a cigarette and a coffee, and then noticed the house next door was on fire. He reportedly tried to get inside and help, but even Ferguson police had to back off several times because of the intensity. As we know, the victims here are Bertie Prusner, her 9-year-old twins Ellie and Ivy, her 6-year-old Jackson, and 2-year-old Millie. This is a Facebook post Bertie made the night before they died, reading, quote, "Making today one of those live each day like it's your last kind of days. Breakfast, reptile show, soccer game, and living room camp out on the agenda, plus what other shenanigans bring us joy. Happy Sunday, thank God the sun is shining." Here is a second post, quote, "Us against the world, I'm so blessed to be their mama. They have a heart for the Lord and have overcome so much more in their little lives than they should have had to face." And finally, there is a third post, again all written the night before they died. This one reads, quote, "All my kids peacefully sleeping in my bed, curled up together, knowing they are loved so fiercely that I'd do absolutely anything for them. This is my favorite moment." So what to make of this, we don't know, but it's clear that all 5 of them were in the mother's bedroom when the fire happened, and that neighbors and police have found it really strange that seemingly no one in that house was waking up. Today, many people are coming forward to describe Bertie as a treasure and a wonderful teacher who loved her children and her family. Social media comments insinuate that there may have been an ongoing divorce and custody battle, but this hasn't been confirmed by police. Right now, police are describing the case as suspicious, and they won't know how the fire started until further investigation. This is what we know about the awful case of 16-year-old Shelby Binney. Shelby was a cheerleader at Bixby High School, and on Thursday night, her family was on their way home with her dad behind the wheel. He had reportedly been drinking, and according to her mom, they were also having a heated argument up in the front seats. At 70 miles per hour, he tried to pass another vehicle in a no-passing zone, and their SUV flipped. As we know, Shelby was tragically ejected from her family's vehicle on impact. A bystander immediately ran over to the scene, but there aren't even words for what happened next. Shelby's father was reportedly standing disoriented just outside of the crashed car, and when asked if anyone was hurt, he ran away. He left his 16-year-old daughter there to die on the pavement. Now, according to police, they were able to determine that Elliot had fled to a local family-owned business, and it was there that he got access to another car. They were able to electronically track that vehicle, and within 12 hours, they found him behind the wheel in a town about an hour away. It was obviously too late to give him a DUI test, but he was taken into custody. With Elliot's arrest, we know that while he tried to tell police he skidded on an oil spot, he's also admitted to taking a few swigs of the vodka bottle that was found in the front seat. Today, Elliot is charged with first-degree manslaughter, but he has already posted his $100,000 bail. And as for Shelby's mom and her siblings, again, unfortunately, we don't know how they're doing now. Shelby is described as a bright light with a heart of gold and the best teammate you could ask for. If you would like to support her family during this time, the link will be in my bio. Suitcase killer Heather Mack has officially pleaded guilty to her mother's murder. If you know the case, you know the heiress was 18 and pregnant when she killed her mom on their vacation to Bali. She served 7 years for the crime, but now she's back in Chicago facing charges that she planned it there with her boyfriend. We now know that in 2014, Heather's socialite mother had forbidden her from dating Tommy Schaefer. She reportedly even moved Heather to Gold Coast to steer her in the right direction, but that didn't stop her from getting pregnant with his child. Instead of being upset with her daughter, Sheila then came up with Bali as a way for them to reconnect, and really to get through everything between them since her dad died. This included more than 80 calls to police for domestic violence between the mother and daughter. So in early August, Sheila booked 2 first-class seats to Bali's 5-star St. Regis. The place was beautiful and things were seemingly going well, but then about 10 days in, she couldn't find Heather anywhere. When Sheila talked to the front desk, she learned that her daughter was actually still there in the hotel, staying in a second room that she was paying for under the name Tommy Schaefer. Instead of apologizing to her mother that night, Heather planned the unthinkable. The next morning, on August 12th, Tommy showed up to the room with a glass fruit bowl. He bludgeoned Sheila to death with it, and she tragically asphyxiated on her own blood. From here, the couple shoved Sheila into a suitcase, put that in the back of a taxi, and tried to check out of the hotel. The thing is, they couldn't. They actually fled and left the suitcase behind, with the taxi driver taking it to the police station. With the discovery of Sheila's body, a pursuit began for the media's new Bonnie and Clyde. They were tracked down to a local hotel, and while they would paint Sheila as the bad guy, cell phone evidence led to a motive: a $1.5 million trust fund. In the end, Tommy and Heather narrowly escaped the firing squad, sentenced to 18 and 10 years. The judge actually cited leniency for Heather because she was pregnant. As we know, Heather served just 7 years of her sentence and has since pleaded guilty to conspiring to kill here in the US. She says she's already done her time and hopes to serve between 0 and 15 years, with her sentencing scheduled for December. Natalie Martin has tragically been found murdered on her senior trip to Myrtle Beach. Natalie just graduated in Ohio, and this past week she and a group of friends were on vacation celebrating. This included her ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old Blake Linkus. Again, tragically, on Wednesday police received a call reporting a deceased woman at a hotel on Mason Drive. There, they found the victim to be 18-year-old Natalie. Police, quote, detected suspicious circumstances and then determined that she had been strangled the night before. From here, investigators collected evidence at the scene along with witness statements. This led to Blake's arrest, with police saying, quote, Blake Linkus did with malice aforethought cause the death of Natalie Martin. The defendant did so by manually strangling the victim. According to a close friend of Natalie's, she and Blake had been a couple for several years up until recently, but the two had reportedly remained friends. So while a motive remains unknown, we know that Blake is being held without bail at a detention center in South Carolina. According to the superintendent from their high school, this was not a school-sanctioned event. It is, quote, a common destination for graduating students in the area. Natalie is described as a free, pure, and wild spirit with a contagious laugh who had a personality out of this world that could bring anyone out of their darkest days. If you can or want to help, the link to her GoFundMe will be in my bio. Jared Bridegan's ex-wife has finally been charged with his murder. If you know Jared's case, you know he was a Microsoft executive living in Jacksonville with his wife and 4 kids. 2 of those kids are twins he shared with his ex-wife Shanna, who divorced him after she cheated with her personal trainer. It had reportedly been an ongoing custody battle for years. We now know on February 16th, Jared was driving home from a custody exchange at Shanna's when he came across a tire in the middle of the road. He had his 2-year-old Bexley in the back seat, and his killer knew he would get out to clear the roadway. He was immediately shot to death at close range. That night, Jared's wife Kirsten, his ex-wife Shanna, and her new husband Mario would have been the only people to know his route. But when the first arrest came in the case 8 months ago, it was a man named Henry Tienon. As it turns out, Henry was renting a room from Mario in Jacksonville just before the murder, and with that, it became clear they had hired him to kill Jared. Come March, Mario too was arrested for his role in the case. And then this week, Shanna was too. She's charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and child abuse as she put Bexley in harm's way. She was indicted on Friday, and in a rare move is actually fighting her extradition back to Florida from Washington. And if you've been following this case, you know this arrest was a long time coming. After Jared was killed, Shanna kept the twins home from his funeral and then moved them across the country to Washington. Since then, she has not once allowed them to see their siblings or Kirsten. As for what will happen to the twins, Kirsten very clearly wants to be reunited, but I don't know. This is the statement from Shanna's parents, the ones who went on vacation with Shanna, Mario, and the twins just after Jared was killed. For more details, updates, and what's going on with the twins, you can go to this page that Kirsten has made, Justice for Jared B. Keely Bunker trusted a childhood best friend to walk her home, but then he took her life. If you don't know, Keely disappeared from Staffordshire, England just a few days after her 20th birthday. It was September 19th, and that night, she and her friend Monique had gone to a concert to celebrate. Now, while the initial plan was for Keely's mom to pick her up after, that didn't end up being the case. The girls decided to go out, and surveillance footage confirms they arrived at Birmingham's Snobs nightclub around 10:30 p.m. For the next 4 hours, Keely was videoed at the club, dancing, drinking, and really just having fun. Right there beside her was her childhood best friend, then 20-year-old Wesley Street. She had always called him Wes for short. By 3:30, the 3 friends had returned back home to Tamworth, and Monique actually offered for Keely to sleep over. The thing is, Keely declined. She had a teaching interview she had to be ready for, and Wes had offered to walk her the 20 minutes home. So tragically, with that, the pair headed out around 4. Keely's last known words were, quote, "I've got Wes, I'll be fine, I'll walk back with him, I'll be safe." As we know, Keely never made it home that night. She was reported missing by family when she missed her interview, and the last person she was seen with was questioned. Altogether, Wesley said that he did walk with Keely that night, but that they parted ways at a phone booth near his house. With that, search efforts began in the area. Keely's purse was found at the local Wigington Park, so her uncle Jason decided to go and look there himself. At first, Jason reportedly saw something red, and then hair and a hand with a bracelet. An officer said he went on to hear the most horrendous scream that he could ever imagine. Again, tragically, an autopsy would confirm that Keely had been both sexually assaulted and strangled. She had marks all over her body, but most notably, Wesley's DNA. In the end, Wesley said he accidentally killed Keely during consensual sex, but then blamed her for flirting with him and not wanting to do anything. As of today, he's been convicted of Keely's assault and murder, along with the assault of 3 other girls. He will face a minimum of 29 years in prison.
Hammer coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
A 9-year-old girl has presumably been abducted, and the search has just entered a critical stage. If you've been following, you know this weekend Charlotte's family was on a 2-night camping trip at Moreau Lake State Park. She was here biking Loop A with her friends Saturday evening, but decided to go around just one last time by herself. When Charlotte didn't return to their site 15 minutes later, her parents say they immediately knew something was up. They began calling her name, and other campers joined in their search, but at 6:45, her bike alone was found in that loop. Her mother then reported her missing just 2 minutes later. Yesterday morning, an Amber Alert was issued stating that Charlotte was, quote, taken under circumstances that lead police to believe she is in imminent danger of serious harm or death. Reportedly, the alert only took so long because they had to exhaust all search efforts in the park and determine that an abduction was a real possibility. Today, the FBI joined in the efforts, which includes rescue teams, bloodhounds, drones, and technology experts to analyze other forms of communication at the park. The hope is obviously to reunite Charlotte with her family, but with it being nearly 48 hours, it has reached a critical point in the investigation. And as for what this area looks like where Charlotte went missing, it's this loop right by the park office. Google Earth shows that from Loop A, you can actually see through the trees to that main road, Old Saratoga. As for Charlotte, she was just a 4th grader from Greenfield and was recently elected to be a class officer for her student council. Less than 1% of missing children in America are abducted by a stranger, but horribly, police believe that is the case. Charlotte is described as 5'1" and 90 pounds, last seen wearing dark blue pants, an orange tie-dye Pokemon t-shirt, black Croc sandals, and a gray bike helmet. Anyone with information is asked to immediately contact the number or email above. With the prime suspect's extradition to the U.S., this is what we know about what happened to Natalie Holloway. In May of 2005, 124 classmates and 7 chaperones made the trip from Alabama to Aruba. They left just 2 weeks after senior prom on May 26th and returned on May 30th. Except for Natalie. Natalie never got to live out her full ride to Alabama or pursue med school because just moments after this photo was taken, she disappeared. That night was a Sunday and the group's 4th night at the Holiday Inn. They again spent it drinking and having fun, but this time at local restaurant Carlos and Charlie's. So this is Natalie again there on the left, where she danced up until close at 1 a.m. At that point, most of the group headed back to the hotel, but she was seen getting into a car with 3 guys she'd met the night before. Joran Vandersloot, a Dutch international student, along with 2 local brothers, Deepak and Satish. Come the following morning, Natalie's friend found that she hadn't returned to their room. They thought maybe she'd slept in another one, but then she missed the flight. One chaperone stayed back to wait for her, while another broke the news to her family. By nightfall, Natalie's loved ones had arrived to Aruba on a rented jet. They got word from Natalie's friends that she'd left with these guys, so they asked a woman at the hotel if she knew him. She did, and within 4 hours, the family had provided police with Joran's full name and address. So while Joran initially told police that he didn't know Natalie, he then said he'd taken her to the local lighthouse because she wanted to see sharks. From here, he's actually told several versions of events. That he dropped her off at her hotel, that she started convulsing on the beach, or that he sold her into trafficking. Unfortunately, local authorities had made up their mind. No charges stuck, with the Deputy Chief Police of Aruba saying, quote, "We feel strongly that she probably went into shock or something happened to her system with the alcohol, and she just collapsed." So with that, Joran quietly went back to school, and in 2010 falsely told Natalie's family that he would take them to her body for $25,000. He took that money and flew to Peru, where he met and murdered 21-year-old business student Stephanie Flores. He was convicted and sentenced to 28 years, which leads us to today. Last week, Peru approved Joran's extradition to the U.S., where he will come to face fraud charges. His lawyer is reportedly worried will tack on charges directly related to Natalie. A 23-year-old has been legally euthanized after struggles with her mental health. And now another young woman is next. This is Shanti DeCourt, and with both the support of her doctors and her parents, she has gone through with ending her life. She was 16 and on a school trip when she survived the Brussels airport bombing, but after that, she, quote, was never the same. Now, according to Shanti's parents, she found it impossible to enjoy life after the attack, to the point where she was scared of balloons bursting and was suffering panic attacks from fireworks. This is what reportedly led them to support her decision, with everyone in her life telling her that her disease was incurable. Doctors then, quote, logically granted her request given her state of suffering, and on May 7th, the procedure was performed. And to be specific, this is reportedly a process where you're given a sedative and then a drug that stops your heart. It's actually legal in 5 countries across Europe, and again now this young woman is following Shanti's lead. 28-year-old Zaraya Beek is from another small town in Germany, and like Shanti, she is struggling with her mental health. In her case, she lives with her boyfriend and her 2 cats, but has been dealing with depression and multiple personality disorder for years. Her doctors have also told her that they have no further treatment options, to which she has said, quote, "I have always been clear that if I can't get better, I won't do this anymore." She is reportedly scheduled to be euthanized next month on the couch of she and her boyfriend's home. Now, what we know is that talk of Zaraya's case is leading to controversy on whether or not this should be legal. There is a review panel to determine if an applicant is eligible, and it's then reportedly their job to examine the death and declare that it was done lawfully. But one former member on that panel has said, quote, I entered the review committee in 2005, and I was there until 2014. In those years, I saw euthanasia practice evolve from death being a last resort option to being a default option. So I resigned. He went on to say that this is especially prevalent in young adults with psychological issues, and that doctors are now more easily giving up on their patients. In 2023, there were hundreds euthanized in Germany, with one of them being Shanti. And while one neurologist did make complaints about the decision being made prematurely, the case was then closed after it was found that no violations were made. And as for Soraya, she's already gotten off of social media ahead of her procedure. She says that things will go something like this. Quote, "The doctor really takes her time. It's not that they walk in and say, 'Lay down, please.' Most of the time, it's first a cup of coffee to settle the nerves and create a soft atmosphere. Then she asks if I am ready. I will take my place on the couch. She will once again ask if I am sure, and she will start up the procedure and wish me a good journey. Or in my case, a nice nap, because I hate if people say, 'safe journey.' I'm not going anywhere."
Sometimes true for stranger than fiction. The case of Richard Trenton Chase is a story which even the most depraved horror writer would struggle to create. Over the course of 4 weeks spanning across 1977 and 1978, Richard Chase took the lives of 6 innocent victims in Sacramento, California. His murders gradually progressed in violence, beginning with drive-by shootings and culminating in acts of cannibalism.
Riley Gall is repeatedly trying to get a new trial for the murder of Emma Walker. If you know the case, you know Emma was tragically shot in the head through the wall of her childhood bedroom. It was the Sunday after another terrifying weekend with her ex-boyfriend, and her dad heard 2 loud bangs in the middle of the night. Now, right then, Emma's dad reportedly jumped up to go check on her, but when he peeked in her room, she appeared to still be sleeping. He assumed it was probably nothing and just went back to bed, with no one realizing she wasn't breathing until her mom tried to wake her up for school. As we know, at 6 a.m., Emma's mom called 911, but while it went over the radio as a possible case of self-harm, officers found bullet holes going through her bedroom walls. Someone had aimed 2 shots directly where her head would be as she slept, with the first lodged in her pillow itself. The other went through the wall before striking her just behind her left ear, and the belief is that she would have immediately passed away. Now from here, police began to ask Emma's friends who would want to hurt her, but the same name kept coming up. Her ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old Riley Gall, who was already posting tributes on social media. He was 2 years older than Emma and dated her on and off from a nearby college, but he was actually banned from her home after something her parents found on a hidden camera in their living room. He was also hospitalized over their most recent breakup, and to say the least, he was desperate for Emma's attention on the weekend that she was killed. As Emma's friends would tell police, on Friday night, Riley faked an entire kidnapping so that she would talk to him. Like, he texted her this from an unknown number, and Emma went outside her friend's party to find him pretending to wake up on the ground, and as though abductors had left him there. Then on Saturday, he reportedly showed up to Emma's house in all black and started banging on the door like an intruder. And this time his plan actually worked and Emma called him for help, but then her mom came home and found them on the driveway together and told him to leave. He tried to contact Emma another 60 times that night before she was killed, but she blocked him. Now with this information, police went to talk to Riley, but he would only refer to Emma as the girl and said that he'd spent the night crying in his car just looking at their photos. He was adamant he was in his dorm parking lot 2 hours from where Emma was killed, but police were already onto him. You see, Riley had told his 2 best friends that he took his grandfather's gun for protection after this kidnapping, and that now he, quote, needed to get rid of it so that he wouldn't get blamed for something he didn't do. His friends were actually already planning an intervention for him and his insane behavior, but now with this and these texts where he was asking them to lie to police, they were convinced he was the killer. They told the detectives everything, and they agreed to work with them. Again, as we know, that very next day, officers went over the plan with the 2 guys and then wired them up with cameras and microphones. The pair went over to Riley's house that same night, and with the hidden camera and a key fob on the table, he just started talking. Police listened as he made plans with them to take the gun to the bluffs and throw it in the Tennessee River. Now from here, the 3 guys set off together, first stopping to get fast food and by Riley's dad's house to pick up the weapon. Again, obviously his friends knew they were in the car with both a gun and a killer, but as they made their way to the river, they knew police were following closely behind. As soon as they parked and Riley put on gloves to grab the bag, officers came out and told everyone to put their hands up. Riley was arrested right there at the scene, and his friends pretended to be shocked. Now at Riley's trial in 2018, his defense didn't argue him pulling the trigger. They actually went for reckless homicide and said he, quote, was just trying to scare Emma into talking to him. Emma's family testified too, with her brother saying that he woke up that morning to her mother screaming that she was gone. Her parents went over all of the emotional abuse and how they did everything in their power to keep him away from her. In the end, Riley was still convicted of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 50 years. But again, ever since, he has just repeatedly gone for a new trial. He says there is insufficient evidence that he intended to kill Emma and maintains that he was only trying to scare her into being with him.